Welcome to Truth Be Told. I am your host, Pierre Casongo. Today, I have another exclusive guest on my program. She is a multiple award winning serial entrepreneur and pharmacy owner. She's contributing to the future by building innovative engineering and technology solutions to supply uh, personalized, patient centered medication globally. Please welcome Morẹ nikẹ, Ọláòṣebìkan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pierre. I feel welcome, and you did really well pronouncing my name.
Well, you know how stressed I was just getting it right. Just out of respect, I really wanted to make sure I get that right. You know? Now I have to tell you, back in August, specifically August 23rd, I was watching CTV News with my mom, and there was a new segment about the drug shortage for kids, specifically Tylenol and and Advil, ibuprofen, and then who shows up on the screen of all people?
That would be me, because I've been talking about the fact that these shortages aren't rocket science to resolve. It just requires a few of us putting our minds, getting resourceful and creative. And so, yeah, it was an opportunity to actually give an example of how we could be part of the solution.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Morẹ nikẹ. So now the design for superhero is lab coats.
Yes.
I was just listening to the radio, just specifically CBC. I was I was hearing the concerns of parents calling in, and they were concerned about the shortage of medicine that that were an issue for their children,
Yeah.
because they were coming in. So this obviously is this is something that goes right along your alley.
It's a hot button topic. It's been a problem for a decade. It just felt like Canadians didn't want to come to terms with the fact that this is an issue that was really critical and serious for us. And when COVID became more of a pandemic and really significantly impacted our lives in 2020, more and more Canadians got aware of the fact that these shortages have been a problem. But pharmacists, healthcare providers, many patients have known for almost a decade that we have shortage issues. Except many of us want to bury our heads in the sand and pretend like this is a developing country problem, and Canada's problem wasn't as critical. And I think more and more we're seeing that the way we distribute drugs, the supply chains, the concentration of manufacturing abroad, there are so many things that don't jive with the way we function in a health system. And we're being asked to question the way we've always made drugs, the way we've always distributed drugs. And so, yeah, so now with children, you have beyond the Tylenol shortage. At the moment, you have gravel shortages for anti-nauseant. You have amoxicillin shortages, so anti-infectives, antibiotics are shorted for children because there is more and more infections as well. And so you have other drugs beyond the pain and fever medications.
Yeah, like the pandemic has certainly sent the entire world into a frenzy, because at the time the uh, this we did not know what to do. Like we were just sent off uh, into just not knowing what to do. Like we were just grabbing whatever was on the shelf and just thinking, okay, if we just grab this and grab this and grab this, like we're certainly going to be, it's going to be solving us. But it it was just not fixing the long term issue. It was just us panicking and just going into, oh, this is probably no, the first thing that we needed to do. But for everyone else that really needed this product, like it affected them because, oh, like for I actually need this, but now every, there's nothing more, right?
Yeah. It was interesting because at the time when the pandemic first came through and intensified in Canada, I was still doing community practice. I've taken myself out of community pharmacy now, and I focus more on making drugs, distributing drugs, and understanding that part of pharmacy practice. But the experience as a pharmacist, I remember because my sense of humor, I hope it's not, it probably is dark for a few people, but the way I survive anything, I am of Nigerian descent. And one of I'm going on a rabbit trail now, but one of my favorite things to do when I go back home is actually to get on, they call them Molues and Danfo, the public transit buses.
Hmm.
Because in those buses, the jokes that get cracked, they are like really self-deprecating jokes. It is people like just everyday people. There's so much suffering on the streets that is not funny. And the sense of humor with which we deal with that suffering, it is so funny how we interact with these like really grotesque things that are happening to us. And I think that upbringing has just stayed with me in that in the most serious and stressful, chaotic, painful moments, the thing I can almost always go to is my sense of humor and my ability to make fun of myself, make fun of the situation. And I remember as a community pharmacist, the amount of chaos that COVID created in practice. There are so many of us pharmacists and physicians and nurses that are now burnt out from it.
Oh,
And I remember the way I got through my days was to just make fun of because everyone was coming in for pop and
mhm.
toilet paper, and all of a sudden people that wouldn't take their drugs were hoarding drugs. So I just kept imagining people using pop, like Coke and orange pop and all of that, to consume all the drugs that they weren't taking before, but all of a sudden were convinced they had to take, and then wiping their asses with toilet paper. Like, this must be what's going on for everyone that is confined in quarantine. They're just like popping pills with pop and wiping their asses with toilet paper all day. And that's why there's so much chaos in the pharmacy right now. And I just saw that people hadn't made peace with their mortality. It was interesting to me. I have had, I contracted tuberculosis for 9 months
Mhm.
uh, when I was younger. And in those 9 months, I spent every day, um, I guess, contemplating my mortality, the
Yeah.
fact that I could die, or the fact that I will die, the fact that we all die. That
Mhm.
was actually a really heavy part of my thinking for those 9 months. And it was interesting to me watching 2020 and just watching people act as if they're not going to die, and
Yeah.
as if, in fact, this COVID was a death sentence. It was two extremes at the same time, as if they expected to be immortal and they also expected that this COVID would kill them
Yeah.
and that they were going to catch it for sure. And then on the extreme end were the ones that thought they were immortal, they couldn't catch COVID, and everyone else that was taking precautions were clearly crazy. And it was just interesting watching that.
No one could come to an agreement on what really is COVID. It was just either it's, oh, I will not get it, I'm invincible, or no, it's fake, or it's, like just everyone be afraid, like we're all gonna die. What was that kind of thing?
We're all gonna die. We're not supposed to die.
Yeah,
We're all gonna die. We're
yeah,
not
we
supposed to.
are all going to. It's just like it's whatever happened to just okay. There's this situation. How do we cope with it? And you're right. Like sometimes even like you would say, like laughter can be the best medicine. Just even joking about it can be
It
the
releases
best
a
way.
lot of tension from it. So I spent so many days there just make doing my best to make light of the experience of pharmacy practice in that moment with
Yeah.
my fellow pharmacists and assistants and technicians.
Back to a personal fact that you revealed. You said that you contracted tuberculosis. Was at what a younger age, right?
Yes, yes, when I was younger. So to do the quick math. So I was, I think, around 18, 19. So
Yeah,
about 20 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, because that was when you, well, because you had then, because if I remember correctly, because I was kind of trying to find out information about you. You said personally that's when you had decided to be a a pharmacist to find like a cure for HIV and AIDS.
My story is, I think, an interesting one. So the obsession with HIV really started when I was much younger. I didn't used to tell that part of the story because it was a weird part of the story. So I remember where I was. I don't remember the age. I think I might have been 8 or 9 because of the place I was. I grew up, it was my childhood, one of my childhood homes, Eric Moore Towers. Remember being on the balcony, and I had this practice. I guess I call it practice now, but at the time, what it was this weird thing. I wanted to look like my mom. I wanted to wear glasses. And someone in passing, in some random joke, had probably said that if you stare at the sun, your eyes get ruined. And so you shouldn't be staring at the sun. So what I would do is I would stand on this balcony and I would stare at the sun for like a long time because I wanted to ruin my eyes. I was successful, I guess,
What?
or whatever, because I ended up having to have glasses. And, and one of the days I'm on this balcony staring at the sun, I had this weird thing, like an epiphany. And the initial thought was that I would find the cure for HIV. Now you can understand why this is a weird thing to say, right? Like it's this 8-year-old. Why are you thinking about HIV? You're staring at the sun. It just has too many weird, mystical, cryptic, like baggage associated with it to say. And it's also really grandiose because what I know now about viral infections,
Hmm.
there's one viral infection that has a cure.
Yeah,
So running around saying, I want to find a cure for HIV
yeah.
also has this grandiose element to it. So I never used to say it. But what then happened was I contracted tuberculosis
Hmm.
and much later in my late teens. And then the place I went to get my treatment, because in African countries, tuberculosis is an opportunistic infection that's really closely linked with HIV. They had a lot of people living with HIV.
Hmm.
So, because my father is a physician and very well connected, I wasn't required to go every day to get my treatment, but I would go every month. And every month I would see all the people that in Nigeria, and Nigeria is one of the higher incidence and prevalence of HIV. I would see all these people different ages, different genders, like backgrounds. And I would see like this sort of resource deprivation in the place we were getting our drugs, and just the standard of care that people were getting. And that left a mark that I couldn't forget. Um, and so when I was done that, I got my visa, I came to Canada. I always kind of held it in mind that I wanted to be part of the solution for HIV. I wanted to find ways to meaningfully change things on the continent around HIV. And yeah, that's the backstory to some of my work. Yeah.
Yeah. That grandiose view of life, it's it's still beautiful because you wanted to be part of a, like you said, you wanted to be a part of a solution, and that's exactly what you did. You know, like you were, being diagnosed with tuberculosis. I almost mispronounced it. And then look at where what you, and then you move on to, well, to become a pharmacist, to Kemet. Not to mention, of course, in university, Ribbon Rouge. There's major in the initiative where you have the event where you would raise money for HIV and AIDS, and it included music, fashion, arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember? Like, how did you get started on Ribbon Rouge?
Like, to give background on how Ribbon Rouge started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to donate money towards HIV relief, and I'm a student. I'm an international student. There are fewer people that are broker than international students by the time you're done paying all your tuition and everything. And so I definitely didn't have money to send back to African countries, but I could sew and I could paint. And I had really great friends like you and a whole bunch of like just enthusiastic college students. And I remember like people actually helped me sew the very first batch of like people who have no clue about any kind of thing with clothing design. They helped me actually cut the pieces, stitch stuff together, and really amateur fashion art show that raised money, actually was profitable. I guess this is what we call a social enterprise now that we name things. But at the time, I didn't know that that's what we were doing, right? So it was just a bunch of students having fun, wanting to do good. And that's how Ribbon Rouge started. They started from this naive thinking that money would fix the problem of HIV. And not only that money would fix the problem of HIV, but that we could make enough money with the arts.
And one of those pieces, including this jacket.
I noticed that. I was looking at that.
Almost 14 years later, it still fits.
I'm jealous. And the whole time, wait, here, are you wearing a Ribbon Rouge jacket? You totally
Yes, of course. How can I not be keeping that jacket? Like, I actually,
I'm gonna take a photo. Because I've been thinking about this whole time, like, is Pierre actually wearing a Ribbon Rouge jacket?
Yes. What, you think I was going to show up to us getting together and not wear it? Come on now. And, there was another orange one that I wanted to buy, and I think I modeled in that too for you. Never, no, but I never got to buy it.
It's as well.
Yeah, but yeah, and actually there was 2 years I modeled for your fashion show, and then there was that one year, the 2009. Uh, that's the one where I got nervous.
This is one way the men had to strip their tops or take their
Oh,
shirts. I was not in charge.
whose idea was this?
This was the year we let Yomi Marcus up putting her on blast.
Do you know how nervous I was? Like before the show, I was just like, "Oh God,
So funny.
oh God."
The year it was Yomi Marcus. There were a couple other people, but I can't remember the other people. I remember Yomi for sure was in charge that year. And I wasn't because I was doing my pharmacy rotation in Calgary. And this is the year that we had the guys actually take their tops off and flex their
Oh.
muscles. It was awesome.
On the plus side, it actually felt nice, women screaming for me, but for the right reasons.
We did it for love. We did it for HIV. We did it for health. For global health.
Exactly, for love, for HIV.
You know the thing about it though, like all of those were they're really good life lessons.
Yeah.
Ribbon Rouge, like some really great friendship. Marriages started because of the Ribbon Rouge. There are people
Yeah.
that come, yeah, they're models who got married. And I learned so much because I started out, and I think this is one of my big life lessons is to just start. Even if you don't know how you're gonna do something, you are not like actually doing it is
Mhm.
is the way. And I think that's really hard for people to get. Like if something is a deep desire, a deep passion, an inexplicable thing that you just really want,
Mhm.
just start somewhere, because the doing is actually the learning.
Mhm.
Because so I started out thinking, even though I wasn't clear on this,
Mhm.
that the way we were going to fix this problem that for whatever reason bothered me was to make money, right?
Right.
At some point I realized actually there's so much stigma, and I could relate to that stigma because when I had tuberculosis, I have a middle class upbringing, for what that's worth. So I'm not in Nigeria, I wouldn't be considered, desperately poor. And I'm not considered exceptionally wealthy. I'm in a really thin section that's thinning out in a lot of African countries of the middle class, right?
Mhm.
And what this meant for me was I touched both sides in my friendships, in my family. And my middle class upbringing also meant there are some diseases you don't catch. Tuberculosis is one of them. Tuberculosis, with the way we see things, the sort of status way we see things, is the disease of people who who are in jail or who do drugs or who are on the streets or even cursed. And when you're socialized, you inculcate these god awful messages. And so I had a very high level of internalized stigma
Yeah.
where I just perceived judgment around this condition that I had, right? And I could relate to that. When I started to meet people with HIV in Canada, I started to see that it also disproportionately affects Black people, Indigenous people, men who have sex with men, as it's categorized. Um, and I started to observe that stigma too. So I could relate to something deeper around how we stigmatize. So then instead of becoming, let's use art to talk about stigma, let's use art to break down stigma.
Yeah.
And very soon we saw that actually there's laws. So Ribbon Rouge has gone from this fashion show. What Ribbon Rouge now is, it's an organization that employs almost 18 people, employs Black scholars to deeply understand why do we contract? What is the difference in how we are treated? Why is our health outcome disparate from others? What is the data? How can we fix that? How can we develop solutions? It's partnered with 3 universities, several millions of dollars in funding, partnered with the Public Health Agency of Canada. Can you imagine that fun amateur thing that we started? And I think the key lesson is just start.
Through arts, through culture, that you learn about HIV and AIDS. You can get the resources that you need. You get the funds, and it doesn't have to be through such a gloom and depressing way.
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
Yeah, exactly. It can you can learn like learn through it in a fun and effective way. Like you can there are again, just as these resources are amazing, and if people are there to help and support you.
Yeah, you got it. And that actually is still a key theme in a lot of my work, that we have really serious issues
Hmm.
to work on. We have really serious work to do, but we can be light about it. We can keep it
Exactly.
sweet. We can we can have humor. We can have fun. It can be the path to this great thing can be pleasurable.
Yeah, and I'll have to say that that's another thing about that that I also see that that's also like like genuine and authentic about you, how like you like the like genuine and dark humor. Like sometimes, can we just enjoy a joke? Do you think sometimes we've lost the ability to laugh?
I
Sometimes.
think we really have lost the ability to be frivolous, to
Hmm.
see humor, to just see the light side of life. And more these days, the way we get really polarized about everything.
It
We're so polarized about
Yeah,
everything.
we've actually, and because we've become so polarized, we've lost the ability to, most of all, be civil to each other. We've lost the ability to be kind, to be polite. Everything has to be a battle. Like everything has to be tribal. Like like you have to go digging into politics, and then it's, oh, you on that side, like, oh, like, go away forever, or you said this the wrong way. I'm gonna cancel you for good. You,
Cancel culture, that's another one. Like
oh
it's
God, like,
something. It's really interesting to me because I'm someone who really wants to be authentic. I'm always wanting to find in the situation what is true for me, what is real for me. And I find that the situation we're in these days, there is so much pressure to fit certain molds. Like if you're left wing, you're left wing. If you're right wing, you're right wing. And then there's a few that are still in the center, but
mhm.
the center is very interesting too. The center is like left of center, right of center. There's no like real.
Yeah,
And this idea that if you're left wing in this way of thinking, then you like everything in life there. That was actually a thing I had to learn when I got here. I had to learn, okay, there's a group of people that they're left, there's some people that are right. And when they're right, this is how they answer gender questions. This is how they answer weather, climate questions. This is how they that was the thing I actually know I had to learn. I had to learn that people actually create these worldviews, create
Mhm.
these constructs, and then they make themselves fit into these boxes. And that's really fascinating to me because it's really hard to actually be authentic when you are feeling pressured into fitting these boxes, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's what we do now. We just speak in these echo chambers. We hardly take the time to actually know ourselves. And we just keep replaying that and not really listening and not really talking. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like you every time you have to, every time you talk, you have to be some crowd pleaser or walking on eggshells. You ever felt that way?
Oh yeah. I am thankful that I pride myself on independent thinking, which
Mm,
is
thank,
a really
thank
interesting
God.
place. It's an interesting place because you just feel like you're shafted all the time. Like you just feel like you piss off everyone just gets pissed off in equal measure because you're not really trying to fit in anything. You're not really trying to fit in any of these worldviews. You're just like, this is what I actually really think on this matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, you have to just say, you know what? This is who I am. Take it or leave it, and just what I oh no. So just what haven't happened to rational thought? Just just go. Okay, I'm gonna be this way. I'm gonna be that way. If you can't accept my train of thought, hey, so be it. This is who I am. So deal with it.
You know, and that it's really interesting you say this is who I am, deal with it. What I find to also be a pattern is that we don't spend a lot of time figuring out who we are. So self-knowledge isn't necessarily a thing that is inculcated in traditional schooling.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily a thing that many parents teach their children because even most parents don't even know that you actually have to cultivate practices. There are rigorous practices that need to be cultivated for self-knowledge to actually have connection with who am I? What do I think? What do I feel? What do I sense in my body? What does that mean? Self knowledge is actually like a whole body of knowledge. And another thing that I think is really interesting about self knowledge, one of my friends, dear friends, mentioned this, and I find it to be true
Yeah.
that even in yourself, you are many, 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 many entities. There are
Yeah.
so many passengers in your bus. That's the analogy we like to use. This idea of there are passengers in your bus, and it really depends which passenger is being activated at any point. And then there's growth and evolution, which means like these many, 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 many entities that you can describe as self
Hmm.
can all grow and they can all evolve. Some can, in the process of evolution, be cut out, and some can blossom. So that the peer I knew 10 years ago is really quite different from the peer I'm experiencing now. And then multitudes of who constitutes you in any given moment can be triggered, deactivated, activated, depending on what's going on in this moment. And so this idea of self as this solid, opaque, like one thing is also not true.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. There's many facets to, or many angles to one person. And just it's like how do you define yourself? It can't just be on one. There's not just one definition. There's just so many that ways that you can describe yourself. Humans are so much more complicated than we think.
Like like, and when we come to terms with that, even with ourselves, it allows us to have grace,
Mm-hmm.
allows us to not give everybody what they deserve.
Yeah.
Is grace. It allows to give people what they don't deserve, which is mercy. It allows us to function from compassion, from love. Because when you can recognize in yourself that you fall short in many ways, there is a truth to that that allows you to connect in a powerful way that's authentic. You can see in yourself the deficiencies you see in others. You can see in yourself the strength you see in others. You can see actually people are mirroring back to you your baggage and your strengths as well. You can see that in other people, and then you're able to, I think, really connect in a way that's really powerful, and heart centered.
Yeah. You ever had like a moment in life where you you start living more like yourself than usual, and you just feel this weight just come off your shoulders?
Yeah, yeah, I can give examples of that. So I owned a Shoppers Drug Mart, as you know, for a decade.
Yeah.
And while I was doing that, we were building Ribbon Rouge to become the entity that it now is. And somewhere in there, layered Kemet and started building this idea of transportable factories so that Africans can make their own drugs. And as I said, I've always known from when I was really young that what my life, why I'm here,
Yeah.
um, is to be a significant contribution to Africans when it comes to health and drug access, in particular HIV. So there's sort of this trickery in what I'm doing, this deception, where the 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 messages I keep getting from the outside world is that this Shoppers Drug Mart thing is like a huge deal. You're 28, you get a store, you're I was barely a permanent resident when that happened. Like, it is like this wild thing that happens after I graduate, barely a permanent resident. Now I have 20 some people employed. Like, it's a thing, right? So the feedback I keep getting is this is a huge deal. And yet, when I finally picked up the nerve and courage to actually do what it was that was my childhood dream, oh my God, the relief, it just walking, and it is by all rational thought and calculation a stupid move. By all ways of calculating this thing mathematically, it does not make sense as the thing I should have done. In terms of if you're wealth accumulating and if you are thinking about, career and status and all the things that society tells you is real. And then when I actually sat with myself, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. this
Yeah.
isn't this isn't the thing. And the courage that it then took to be authentic was a lot. And at the same time, the relief when I finally like gathered up that courage. It's been really good. It's difficult. It's very challenging what I'm doing, and it's meaningful, and it fuels me, and I am joyful in it. Right? I can make jokes at terrible things that have happened to me,
Yes.
but yes, it is. It's fulfilling when we live our lives authentically.
What was your purpose again?
My purpose is to contribute meaningfully to dignity, love, health, well-being of people of African descent by providing access to drugs
Right.
and access to good quality healing and medications.
I love what you do, Morẹ nikẹ. And I will say, just could Do you think that you're gonna get back to designing any more African clothing? Because I could use more than one jacket. And I mean, like you, I mean, trust me, I fell in love with this jacket. I could use some more design from you.
Or jackets. It's
You
funny because like
know what, though? All jokes aside, there are three critical questions that I have, and three last questions that I have. The first being, what does living your truth mean to you?
I find it means, first off, cultivating the practices to know who I am on a moment by moment basis, knowing that I grow, I evolve, I change, to know who that person is, to know all the passengers in that bus.
Yeah,
And then cultivating the practices to be really clear on what I want in every situation. What do I really want? What really is my intention here? Because we all play a racket. We do a lot. We do a lot, act as if, and deep down inside, in sometimes even in our subconscious, there's what we actually intend, what we actually want. And for me, being true to myself is actually getting to that, figuring what that is, and then not betraying it, actually being real to that, not betraying myself, doing what that is, being what that is, living out that intention. That's what it means to me.
right. And second question is, how does living your truth and being authentic make you a better person?
I don't know if it necessarily makes me a better person. I can say though, what I know for sure is it makes this ride with life so much joy, much more joyful, blissful, more whole. There's when I live that way, in my truth, in my authenticity, when I don't betray myself, regardless of the outcome, I'm good.
Yeah.
When I betray myself and I do what mom said, and I do what this other person said, and I like shape shift and I say this when I mean that, when I do that,
Mhm.
and the result isn't great, I feel doubly worse. I feel bad because the result isn't good. And I also feel bad because I knew that this thing that I was doing wasn't real. And so I don't know if it necessarily makes me a better person or it makes anything better. What I do know for sure is that it's just a much more peaceful, more joyful, more blissful, more integral, whole way to actually live my life. Yeah.
And finally, what advice would you give to someone looking to embrace themselves?
Man, that you are beautiful, you are deeply loved, and there's a process of like unlearning all the baggage that we picked up along the way. Some of us pick it up from our parents, some of us pick it up from friends, some of us we pick it up from our spouses, our relationships, our romantic relationships. We just pick up all this baggage about who we are that isn't real, but we've come to accept it as real. We accept worldviews from religions. We accept worldviews from society, from media, from fake news and real news. We accept belief systems. We inculcate ourselves with all these things. And there's like this whole other process of unlearning. So, what advice will I give? To just trust in the fact, in your goodness, and trust in your journey back into that real person, that actual like baggage free person, And I also found on a really tactical tip in my journey, I'm still on my journey, that having other real people who can be authentic with you has been helpful. So I make jokes that I have a mentor for every life problem, like every version of a different type of problem. There is someone I can call and be like, so I'm having HR issues today, and this is how I'm feeling about it. Oh, and if I have legal issues, don't call that one. She's gonna make it like 20 times worse. Call this other one. Like, I feel like I have like a personal like board of directors guiding me in this journey to figure out who I like, the deepest, truest version of myself. And these people can be really real with me. They can just say what they're seeing.
Yeah.
In a practice of actually getting those perspectives, it's a practice in multiple perspective taking, which, to your point earlier, is missing in our society. The ability to have other people have their own perspective and you have your own perspective, and both of you don't have to like be not civil to each other. So actually having like people different perspectives in on me as I'm moving in that journey has also been really helpful for me.
Words of Wisdom by Morẹ nikẹ.
We try.
You can follow Morẹ nikẹ Ọláòṣebìkan on Twitter at Farm Morẹ nikẹ, also on Instagram at Ariwa Canada, also on Facebook at morenikẹ.ariwa, and also on LinkedIn, on the link, the linkedin.com/in/Morẹ nikẹ. I want to thank my my guest, Morẹ nikẹ. Thank you so much for being here, and to you, the listeners and the viewers, for attending this podcast. Thank you again for being here, and remember, stay true.
Thanks, Pierre. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe and like, and you'll keep up to date with the content on my channel.